worthy, valuable perspective. Welcome to the Brave Files podcast, friends. I'm your host, Heather Vickery. In most of our 177 episodes, I interview someone awesome, someone who has stepped out of fear and into bravery in literally every possible way. You see, I'm on a mission to create a revolution of people embracing everyday brave. Because here's what I know for sure. When we choose bravely with intention and thought, we choose bigger, we win bigger, and it's contagious. So my goal with the Brave Files podcast is to get you to think about what you're doing every day that's brave. And brave, much like success, is self-defined. Depending on the day and what's happening in your life, sometimes getting out of bed is brave. Sometimes it means something that everybody else would consider brave, like climbing a mountain or quitting your corporate job to start a side hustle or having a baby or deciding to go on a first date. Brave can be literally anything. What makes it powerful is that you have a fear that you acknowledge, learn something from, and then choose to do the thing anyway. So normally I interview people who have stepped out of fear and into bravery, but today I'm sharing a personal story, and it's going to be a solo episode. The idea came to me while listening to some clients talk about their struggles with being alone. How many of you feel really uncomfortable being alone? Personally, I love being alone, but learning to spend time with myself has been, a bit of a challenge. It didn't come easy. I didn't start that way, but it's also been a game changer. In fact, I'm recording this very episode live from Nashville, where I've been attending the Podcast Movement Conference, surprise, surprise, alone. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, just me and you. So let's get to it. This is Heather Vickery, and you're listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. When we choose bravely in big and small ways, it powerfully elevates our lives. I hope these stories connect with you and encourage you to embrace bravery in every possible way, day after day. Together, we can build a movement of courageous living that enriches both our lives and our communities. And if you enjoy the show, I ask you to please share it with others. Maybe think of someone who you want to choose bravely right alongside you. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's the show. All right, friends, let me just start by saying that I love being alone, but it really wasn't always like that. I can clearly remember moving to Chicago after college graduation and finding myself as alone as a person could possibly be. I was ready for a big move. I was ready for a big city. I'd born and raised in Indianapolis, went to college in a really small school in Springfield, Ohio. And I moved to Chicago without a single friend. I didn't know anybody there. My mama, I love her so much. She brought me to Chicago. She helped me get moved into my apartment. And I'll never forget when she got in the taxi cab. This was before Uber or Lyft. We were getting in taxi cabs to head back to the airport. And I watched her drive off. And I just started bawling. Like I was alone. There was no safety net. There was nothing. And it was really, really terrifying. And off I went back up to my little studio apartment where I did have a cat. I guess there's that. There was a cat. Me and my cat, her name was Honey. She's not with us anymore. And I was like, oh my God, now I need to go to the grocery and figure out how to feed myself and go to restaurants and make a life for myself alone. It was just me, myself, and I, honestly. And while this was really new for me, it didn't feel like that much of a stretch because I love meeting new people and I tend to make friends fairly quickly, pretty much everywhere I go. So I knew that the full and total complete aloneness of the situation wouldn't last forever. In fact, I remember making my very first friend in my first apartment in Chicago. Shout out to Mark Rosenberg, my buddy. From my apartment kitchen window, you could see a little sun deck that we had. And I was in there making dinner and checking things out, and I saw two guys who were hanging out on the rooftop deck. And I just like popped right out and went over and introduced myself and said hi and built my very first friendship, which of course leads to more connection and more friendship. And so, that kind of thing, when you're able to choose that, it teaches you to trust yourself. It teaches you to trust the people around you. There was no real risk. If those guys didn't like me, they didn't want to be my friend, whatever. It didn't really matter. I could talk to somebody else. And I know that that's definitely challenging for some people. Talking to strangers can be really hard. But I was eager to build a life for myself and make these new connections. I ended up getting a job. My very first job in Chicago, oh my God, I was supposed to sell copiers. I worked for a copier company. I always joke to say I was supposed to sell them, but I didn't actually really sell any. It was outside sales. It was a terrible job, knocking on corporate doors, literally foot traffic from one place to the other. But what I did learn was how to get around the city. And I learned different spots I liked, and I definitely started talking to people and making some friends. So, I was really immersed in this aloneness. But the very first time that I did anything that felt really uncomfortable with being alone for me was I at this point I was working for a company. I was producing and planning executive training conferences, and they were fun. We had a really good time. We would plan them all over the country in gorgeous hotels, and I was going to be doing an event in Atlanta. And my best friend since middle school was living nearby Atlanta. And we were going, I booked a ticket and a hotel room to come in 3 days early and spend the weekend with her, which back then was a really big deal, folks. I think I was making, $28,000 a year or something. The money was tight. Booking a ticket was tight. You couldn't really change that stuff like you do these days. It was all a really big investment. And the day before I was supposed to leave to meet her, she called and let me know that she couldn't spend the weekend with me. Now, the whys of that are a bit tricky. Maybe it's a little bit fuzzy. I was definitely hurt, and I thought, what am I going to do? I have to go to Atlanta. I have to go for work. I didn't want to change my flight. All of that was really tricky. So I thought, okay, Heather, here we go. You're going to go to Atlanta by yourself for the weekend. What the hell does that even mean? It was terrifying. I literally felt panicked. But I did. I went. I checked in for the first time ever in my life. I checked in to a hotel by myself. I wandered around and found something to eat. And I had 3 days totally alone, no plans, no work. And I needed to fill my days. And I started just wandering around. I was in wandering around Midtown Atlanta. And I came across this little restaurant, which a friend of mine says that she thinks is still there, which is so cool, called the Vickery Cafe. And I thought, oh, man. Back then, I wasn't as in tune to messages and signs from the universe as I am now. I was very far away from the personal growth, pay attention to your intuition space that I'm in now. But something felt really big about that. I was like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to have dinner and I'm going to take a picture of the menu and send it to my dad. And I felt all of a sudden like I wasn't alone. Like somehow the city had decided to welcome me. And I sat there, and this was way before iPhones and smartphones and e-readers and any social media, way before any of that, right? So I think I had a book and maybe a notebook, and I pulled those out, and I just sort of sat in that space. And I started to recognize in that moment, sitting at that cafe, that I'm fun. I'm nice. It's cool to hang out with me. I didn't have to have other people around to validate my worth or my value or my existence, that I could give that to myself, that I could entertain myself enough. And it probably should have been my first sign that I'm actually not an extrovert. Nobody believes that about me because I have a very public persona and I can talk to anybody. But really, I am an introvert. I like my quiet time. I like my quiet space. All of that is really, really crazy, right? So sitting at the Vickery Cafe with no real entertainment was this first opportunity to embrace the value of spending time alone. And for those of you out there who have some fear with spending time alone, I would love to know, what is it that you're afraid of? What is it that you think will happen if you spend time alone? I think for some folks, they worry about, if you're really quiet, if you're really listening to yourself, what are you going to find? I have one friend who said she can't do yoga because when she does yoga, the inside parts break, right? What are we hearing? What's connecting with us? And why is it brave to do it anyway? I went from living alone to having a family, so no more living alone, but going on trips and vacations alone, sometimes for work, sometimes for pleasure. And now one of the things that came out of the pandemic for me is this desire, this deep, deep, deep desire to participate in sacred rest. I learned about that from Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, who was a guest on this very podcast, right? And so I started taking solo retreats. It started as a 48-hour getaway. I would detox with tech, no phone, no computer, whatever, just me and a book and a notebook, back to those old days, right? I started doing that, and then it's grown, and now it's 5 days, usually 5 nights, 5 days, where I go away, usually within driving distance, pretty short, and I just get a little Airbnb, which I know is, I know that's steeped in privilege. I absolutely know that the ability to do that, for me, I'm super lucky that I get to do that. And sometimes I work while I'm gone, but I get a lot of quiet time. I don't have anybody else sharing my energetic space, and it's something that's really, really impactful for me. And I do that, 3 or 4 times a year now. Just like this trip right here, coming to Nashville on my own, it allows me the opportunity to be open to whatever presents itself, to making new friends, to trying out new restaurants. And I don't have to worry about accommodating somebody else's needs or worrying about whether or not they're getting what they want out of the experience. And that's such a beautiful confidence builder, is that I can do this on my own. I can make these decisions. I can be open and flexible. And you can start doing this too. You can start slowly. You don't have to go away on big solo retreats. You don't have to go on vacations alone or work trips alone. You can take walks, go to a museum alone, take yourself out to eat. You can just sit and rest in silence and dream and think. And I know it can be really scary, but often we're afraid of, like I said, what we might find when we get quiet. But it's worth it, because as RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Right? Spending this quiet time alone, learning to trust yourself, learning to listen to yourself is one of my favorite, bravest ways to grow your own self-confidence, to value your own self, to find your own worth, to change your perspective. As I've sat here throughout the last week, I'm here for a whole week in Nashville, I have started to really gain a completely new understanding of my own personal brand and the direction I want to take my business, right? So many exciting things coming down for all of you, both with this show, within our Facebook community, which is the Brave on Purpose Collective. I hope you're over there. If you're not, within my coaching practice, Intentionally Brave Entrepreneurs, VIP days. I have a new podcast that I can't tell you anything about yet. I'm not trying to tease, but I'm super excited to see that take shape and come out here in just the next few weeks. It's going to be amazing. So if I had not decided to show up in this space alone and open to possibilities, I wouldn't have learned some of these wonderful things about myself and the direction that I want to take my life and my business and my brand. And that's a big scale for me, but it can be a small scale for you. How do you want to be in the world? Who do you want to be in the world? How do you want to connect? How do you want to be seen? How do you want to be heard? You are worthy. You are valuable. And your perspective matters. Those are the 3 words. I did 3 words. I never get to do 3 words. I never get to do them because I'm always the one doing the interviewing. And I thought, well, I get to do 3 words. And I really spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted those 3 words to be. And I settled on worthy, valuable, perspective. Worthy, valuable, perspective. The journey towards finding those things for myself, my own worth, my own value, my own perspective. See, if we spend all of our time with somebody else, we don't know if it's our perspective or if it's their perspective, right? So this separation, this solitude, this opportunity to really sit with your own thoughts and your own heart and your own emotion gives you a perspective that you cannot get if there's something else happening around you. So I'm celebrating my solo trip by making awesome new friends and wonderful new connections, getting a better understanding of who I want to be in the world and how I want to impact the world and how I want to support all of you amazing, wonderful, brave listeners. I really want to know how you are out choosing bravely. What is bravery to you? How are you defining it? Remember that we are here to create a revolution of everyday brave. Everyday brave. What does that mean to you? Maybe it means spending a little time alone in the car without any sound on, or taking a walk, or going on a solo trip. Maybe it means sitting in the park. Maybe it means just shutting down the noise. Just like me, I want you to realize that your voice matters, even to yourself. One of the things that has really been coming home to me this week is that my voice can help spark a little light for someone else. And I'm hoping that there's a little light that's been sparked for you. And I'd love to hear about your experiences doing things alone. Do you love it? Do you hate it? How often do you do it? What comes up for you when you think about this? And I invite you to email me at heather@vickeryandco.com or connect with me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. My username is @vickeryandco. Come and join us in the Brave on Purpose Collective. It's facebook.com/groups/Brave on Purpose. You can also find the link in all of the show notes here, which is awesome. But I want to hear how you're doing this and what do you think and feel about being alone, being solo? How does it resonate with you? What do you find for yourself? Do you prioritize time alone? Something that I find to be so impactful, and I know that it's wildly brave across the board. So I cannot wait to hear what you all think about it. We are all on the precipice of some change or growth. And when we don't take the time to be quiet and alone and hear it, we may very well miss the signs. So I want you to be here now and be intentional. And this is Heather Vickery reminding you today and every single day to go out and choose bravely. We'll be back next week with our regular interview style episode. I can't wait to share it with you. Let's be sure to connect. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hey friends, I want to share something really exciting with you. We already know you enjoy listening to podcasts because you're listening to this one, but I'm also betting you enjoy audiobooks. And hey, listen, if you don't already enjoy audiobooks, then it's time to check them out. That's why I'm really excited to share Libro.fm with you. They are an incredible new platform for listening to audiobooks. And by choosing Libro.fm over other audiobook services, you are supporting a local bookstore of your choice and investing in your local community. Libro.fm offers over 150,000 audiobooks via their primary platform, which, by the way, they built with love and from scratch because they're a small business also. They even offer bookseller recommendations for great audiobook options. You can sign up right now via www.vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. That's vickeryandco.com/LIBROFM. And when you do, you'll get one free audiobook of your choice, and the proceeds will go to your favorite local bookstore. Now, check what I just said there. You're going to get a free book, and the proceeds are still going to go to your local bookstore because Libro.fm makes sure that their booksellers get paid even when they give a promo to customers. I've listened to over 20 audiobooks this year alone. I especially love listening to memoirs read by the author, and it feels great knowing that all of my purchases support my local bookstore, The Book Table, in Oak Park, Illinois. Libro.fm. The same audiobooks, the same price, but a completely different story. Check them out right now at vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Maybe you've had this thought and then quickly shut it down because who has the time? Or you don't know how, or gosh, it just all seems too hard. If you have something to share with the world, we want to encourage you to get your message out. The world needs to hear it. Did you know that 50% of all homes are podcast fans? If you've ever wondered about having your own podcast or how it can increase your business or get your message across, then please join me and the other experts from the Podcast Power Academy for our monthly free Q&A session. It's called So You Want to Start a Podcast? This casual live conversation will help you understand how podcasting can be a great decision, why now is the best time to get started, and how to get into action with it. Visit podcastpoweracademy.com to learn more. You've been listening to The Brave Files, stories of people living courageously. To learn more about the show, find our show notes and full episode transcripts, or to get some great bonus content, visit thebravefilespodcast.com. And we would love to know what you think of the show. You can give us a call at 312-646-0205. Let us know your thoughts on the episode, the show in general, or maybe share with us how you're out choosing bravely. This episode is brought to you by Vickery & Co. Success Coaching. Coaching that helps you maintain a life well lived and a business well run. Learn more at vickeryandco.com. Our music was created and produced in a custom collaboration with Matt Lewis from ML Creative Consulting, a boutique firm dedicated to helping clients identify their unique sound and amplify their brand with custom delivered soundtracks. We couldn't do any of this without our extraordinary audio engineer, Andrew Olson. Learn more about him and check out his work at findandrewolson.com. And special thanks to everyone on Team Brave, from our producers, associate producers, copy editors, writers, and support team. Special thanks to Molly, Mary, Kim, Sabra, and Sabrina. I'm your host and executive producer, Heather Vickery. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.